邪悪を壊滅しうるは勇猛さ。
無駄だ。
持ちこたえて。
私のために歌え歌え歌え。塵一つ残さず消えてしまいなさい。
レーバテイン。
Today, I'm going to tell you about the best operators to pick with the upcoming 6-star selector ticket from Neolight. I won't just rank the operators by strength, I'll include how easy it is to get them over the next few months, factoring in banners and the gold certificate store. With this information, you'll be able to make an informed decision when it comes to your selection. Hey, Thorns, what are you doing out of the class? No Distrezor. No. Get back into class. I won't tell you again. Go. Right. The 6-star selector ticket from Neolight includes all standard operators up to and including the release of Passenger. No Calcit this time, sadly. You can see the list of operators on screen, and we'll go into detail for them very soon. There are no limited operators available. The ticket costs $30 and also includes one 10-pull ticket. So really, the 6-star is roughly $20. It may cost more in your region. It's considerably more in Australia, for instance. Also, the ticket has a 60-day expiry, so you can always hold on to it, see what you get over the next 60 days before you make your decision. Of course, don't forget to use it. And very importantly, now listen very carefully. Choose the correct operator. No, I don't think you heard me properly. When you pick the operator, choose the one you want, not the other one. The one that you want. Yes, the one you want, not the other one. Understood? Right. Let's move on. Okay, so to help narrow down the choices, let's first rank the operators into tier. Now these rankings are general, overall power across all relevant game modes, and remember you are paying for this. So part of the ranking is based on value for money. You can sort of think of it as how likely would I be willing to spend money on these operators. So we'll start at the bottom with the low tier. We start with Siege, a Pioneer Vanguard. Pioneer Vanguards are Vanguards that also do some lane holding and some damage. Siege, unfortunately, has been outclassed by other units. She's about to be outclassed by another Vanguard with Neolight. She's also one of the easier operators to acquire, so I really don't recommend getting her. The problem with Siege is that her best skill, skill 2, doesn't give you DP while she's not fighting. Vanguards are all about giving you those deployment points, so if she doesn't fight and she doesn't give you deployment points, then what's the point? From a combat aspect, there are better picks within the same area. Then we've got Mystima, unfortunately comes from the AoE caster class, which is one of the worst classes in the game. We also know what her upcoming module is going to be, and sadly it does not fix any of the issues with her massive skill recharge for not that much damage, considering the skill charge time. So she's not a very good operator. Then we've got Regular Chen. Regular Chen has largely been forgotten by Hypergriff with the release of Summer Chen. I think at this point, getting Regular Chen is largely worthless. You can get some use out of her. She has one skill where you can deploy her and then instantly activate the skill to kill some enemies. The damage is not even high enough to kill dangerous enemies, so she's just not very good. And lastly, we've got Skadi, possibly the worst 6-star in the game. Unlike Chen, who has some uses, regular Skadi has almost no uses. And if you've got Corrupt Skadi already, you can't use an altar plus the original at the same time, so there's really no point. And remember, you're paying money for this. I would absolutely not pay money for any of these 4 operators. Then we get to the mid-tier. Now, the mid-tier has a lot of niche picks. These are operators where, if you use them in the right circumstances, they will be extremely powerful. Some of these operators, in some circumstances, will even trivialize the stage. But when you're paying money for an operator, my recommendation is you want to go for someone that's going to give you lots of value for money and has a lot of use outside of just a specific niche. So we start with Weedy, who is the best pusher in the game. Her specialty is holding a lane against enemies that are light enough for her to push back. If you're up against a lane of enemies light enough, she will absolutely shut down that lane. And quite often you will see that in contingency contracts. Outside of that, she's fairly niche, and for general content, you don't use her that much. Then we've got Angelina, slow supporter. Strong pick. The main reason I put her in mid is that there is another slow supporter who is more useful, has more general use, and has a more varied kit. Angelina is a strong pick, definitely one of the best in this mid tier. But if you're going to pick Angelina, there is a better pick in Suzerain, which I'll talk about once we get to her. Then we've got Shining. Shining is the ultimate counter to heavy physical damage. There are certain enemies, particularly some really tough bosses, where if you bring Shining along, that armor buff that she gives to your allies will shut down that big damage. However, if you aren't going to get up against an enemy that hits that hard, then a 4-star healer will do largely the same as Shining. Alongside Shining, we have Nightingale, who is roughly the Arts version of Shining. However, with Arts damage, it's much more dangerous, and so when Nightingale is useful, it makes a much bigger difference. For top tier content, Nightingale is an absolute top tier pick. However, again, we're talking about general use, and most likely most players won't be tackling that high level content, especially players who have a lot of operators to go. Nightingale will be someone you get later on. She's more of a luxury pick in that sense. Once you do tackle that high-end content, having Nightingale is an absolute must-have. For the moment, until you've got your core established, Nightingale won't do that much more for you compared to, say, like Telopsis or Perfumer. She is better than them, but only for those specific circumstances where arts damage is a big deal. Now, when arts damage is a big deal, Nightingale absolutely shuts that down. She is so good at countering arts damage. Then we've got Passenger. Passenger is about to get buffed again with his module for Near Light. Passenger is a chain caster. Chain casters sadly fall into the AoE caster trap. However, Passenger getting several buffs, he also gets boost to his crowd control abilities, and for the integrated strategies new game mode that is upcoming, he is an absolute god. He is the best unit of integrated strategies. But outside of that, for general use, he's a little more difficult to use, and there are better picks to go for first. If you do want to see a video on every new feature that's upcoming, including integrated strategies, I have a link for that in the description below. You'll find it very useful. Then we've got Schwartz. Schwartz is a boss killer sniper. Her specialty is just focusing on tough enemies in a direct line in front of her, and she snipes them out of existence. Very useful for that. Very similar to a sweeper unit in that sense. But generally, a sweeper will be more useful overall, a little easier to use. Sometimes she's a little bit restrictive in how you can use her, but she's still a solid pick for that boss killing capability. Then we've got Blemishine, one of my favorite operators. Blemishine is a very versatile, very fun to use defender. She's got healing, DPS, crowd control in the form of sleep. She's tanky. She's got some strong passives for support. Great one to use. However, if you are going to go for someone like Blemishine, there are a few better defender picks that we'll get to in a moment. That said, if you do love defenders, especially if you love defenders like Mudrock, then Blemishine is an excellent pick because one of her passives is increasing the recharge of skills that only charge when your unit takes a hit. She adds the ability to charge on attacks as well. And she also has one of the best skins in the game currently available in the store. Then we've got Saga. Saga is one of the reasons why Siege is in low. Saga is better than Siege in every way. One reason is that Saga, with her skill 2, has much the same overall effect as Siege's skill 2. With Saga skill 2, you can activate it at any time. You don't need enemies to be in range, you can just activate it for the DP. But on top of that, Saga also has the ability to give skill points to allies. She hits pretty hard, she's quite tanky for a Vanguard, and she's really good at countering swarms. Saga is a strong pick. However, if you are going for Vanguards, there is someone else to go for first instead. Then we've got Ark. Ark is for the veteran players with the established roster. He is one of the best buffers in the game. In exchange for almost killing your unit, he will give massive attack speed, but you want to have all your power picks, everything set up first, then you go for a luxury pick like Ark. Hoshiguma, when talking standard defenders, Hoshiguma is as standard a defender as you can get. She's got high defense, she can dodge just about anything, she can even reflect damage and deal damage back to enemies, which can be useful in some circumstances. Upcoming Contingency Contract 8 has use for that. Then we've got Kyobi. Kyobi is a single target caster, specializes against high armor enemies. Kyobi is currently outclassed by Aya, who we'll get to in a moment, and sadly she's getting outclassed by the next single target caster to release, the Pink Cat Dog Golden Glow. So for those reasons, there's not much incentive to choose Kyobi. over other operators. She's still a good operator. She's very fun character, but she's getting outclassed yet again. Magellan comes from the Summoner class. Summoners can be some of the strongest operators in the game, but they are also the most difficult to use. And someone like Magellan requires specific knowledge of the stages and of the enemies, very difficult to use effectively, very powerful if used effectively, but definitely not recommended for new players. Even for veteran players, you may want to just hold off and get Ling, a upcoming limited summoner in just a little over 3 months' time. Ling is much easier to use, fits into your standard team much better, is a really strong operator with a lot of versatility. Then we've got Archetto, anti-air sniper. Anti-air snipers are all rather similar. Archetto is outclassed by Exia and Ashe. Now obviously Ashe is a limited operator, you can no longer get her. Exia, who we'll talk about in a moment, is simply better. So if you're going to pick an anti-air sniper, there is a clear better choice. That said, Archetto is still excellent. If you missed out on Ashe and you want 2 6-star anti-air snipers, why not? She works perfectly well. Then we've got Eunectes. Eunectes is a duelist defender. The problem with Eunectes is the core problem of her archetype, which is that she's only got 1 block until you charge up her 3rd skill, and then she goes into she basically turns into a Gundam. A super Gundam that does a lot of damage, very high stats, very good at dealing with particularly tough enemies one-on-one. However, it's a little clunky to use, a little expensive to deploy, and so not that recommended for newer players. Also, there are much more effective, more efficient, better picks to go for first. Then we've got Helliger, one of my first operators. He's an enmity guard. Enmity units cannot be healed by allies, and so as a result, if he can't deal with an enemy, it's a little difficult to help him out without adding another operator to the fight, which sort of defeats the point. He does a lot of damage. He does even more damage when he gets low on health. He heals quite rapidly when he's not blocking enemies. He can either focus on one enemy at a time in a stream, or you can get him to do a AoE in a line to cut down 3 enemies at a time. Very deadly, right up until he goes against an enemy that's stronger than him, and then it just feels like he's useless. He's a strong operator, but for the most part, a more simple lane holder is more effective and certainly more versatile. And lastly, in the mid-tier, we've got Rosa. Rosa is a Besieger sniper. Besieger snipers have a very wide, far attack range. Rosa's specialty is dealing with heavy units. The heavier the unit, the more damage she does, and she also has the ability to lock them down with a very long stun, and in a wider area, targeting multiple enemies at once. She's really, really good at countering heavy enemies. However, when you aren't dealing with heavy enemies, pretty much any other sniper will do. I wouldn't take her as a priority pick. That said, she is a good pick from here, and she has a awesome skin upcoming. Then we get to the top tier. We'll start with Suzerain. I mentioned her before when talking about Angelina. Suzerain is a supporter with debuff capabilities. She's got a very potent kit. With her skill 2, you can have her targeting 3 enemies at once after the skill is charged up. Targeting 3 enemies at once, bonus damage, slowing them down, and all enemies within her range that are slowed take 20% extra damage from all sources. However, what you really want Suzerain for is her 3rd skill. When you activate that 3rd skill, she goes into the avatar state, expands into a wide range of effect, slowing all enemies down, healing all allies, and she doubles that fragile debuff. So enemies are taking 40% more damage, and it lasts for 35 seconds with masteries. She boosts the potency of your entire team. She was one of my starter units, and I can very much attest to her power. Next, we've got Ifrit. She's a line caster. Unlike single target or AoE casters that have a wider range of attack, she can only attack in this one lane in front of her, 5 tiles ahead. However, she hits all enemies in that range for a lot of damage. You can either go for sustained, consistent damage with skill 2, or you can go for a big burst of damage with skill 3. She also reduces enemy resistance, which helps in dealing with high resistance enemies and boosting your allies' damages. There's a reason there's such a thing as the Ifrit lane. In stages where there's a good placement for Ifrit, if not trivializing the entire stage, she will at least trivialize half the stage. You may be thinking, what about to the upcoming 5-star operator from Neolight, Koroserum? Koroserum is good, but he's nowhere near as good as Ifrit. He's not even close to a substitute for her. She is an excellent, excellent pick. One thing to note about Ifrit though, she is probably the easiest operator to recruit. Now, of course, don't rely on recruitment, but in my experience, about 40% of top operator tags that I've pulled personally or pulled for my viewers, about 40% of them have had a guaranteed Ifrit, if not a 50-50 Ifrit. Of course, if you really want her, don't rely on the top operator tag. Then we've got Blaze, a AoE guard who's best known for that longer attack range once her chainsaw is revved up. She reaches an extra tile of attack range. Now that extra tile doesn't seem like much, but she's attacking in an area, which means she's cutting down all enemies in range. That extra range allows her to ignore many enemy mechanics, such as exploding bugs. She'll kill them before they get in range of damaging her. You can also have her attacking over the top of another defender. Liscam is a perfect pairing with her. Rather than down the lane, you can face her towards the side lane and she can reach over a wall and cut enemies down in another lane. For considerable damage, she also becomes quite tanky, and she has status resistance, which means CC only lasts half as long on her, and that is very, very useful. Then we got Phantom, powerful fast redeploy. He is basically every other fast redeploy in one. So with his first skill, you've got someone similar to Gravel. With his second skill, you've got someone similar to Project Red skill 1, or your typical fast redeploy, just focus on damage. And then skill 3 is like Project Red skill 2 with some CC on deployment. And he's got the clone. He can deploy a copy of himself with the same skill effect. He's got his module that fixes his one weakness, which is his high deployment cost that really adds up over time for a fast redeploy. His module will increase the refund, which makes him even more viable, plus it also boosts his damage. Definitely got one of the best modules in the game. I should mention, Phantom also has an upcoming free live 2D skin from Integrated Strategies. If you want to see that skin, as well as all other live 2D operators and skins, check the description below for a video on that. It includes current and upcoming live 2D. Fantastic skin, and it's completely free. Then we've got Mountain, an absolute mountain of a lane holder. This guy, very cheap to deploy, really good at countering early rush strategies. After a few seconds, you activate his skill. He has massive regeneration, becomes really tanky, and deals good damage at the same time. Basically, any enemy that doesn't one-shot him, he can just hold the lane against them. He just doesn't break. Very easy to use as well. Very beginner-friendly unit in Mountain. We've got Exia, best anti-air sniper you're going to get access to with Ashe no longer available, and Ashe is roughly the same level of power with the strengths in different areas. Exia is focused on very high burst damage with a lot of shots. She benefits greatly from buffs due to how her damage formula works. Buffs scale pretty ridiculously with her, so combined with the likes of Arc and Warfarin, she can do ridiculous levels of damage. Very powerful anti-air sniper. Every roster at some point should get Exia. And then we come to the last of the top tier with Zarya. Zarya is a defender with strong support and strong healing and even strong debuff capabilities. Zarya is one of those units where it's worth getting full mastery on all her skills. With skill 1, you got a strong single target heal option. Skill 2, strong AoE heal. Skill 3, a big arts debuff with some healing. She also gives allies SP whenever she heals them. She's got this stacked kit of skills and passives. Powerful unit. Quite often when you bring Zarya onto the field, you don't even need to bring a medic. That's how strong her healing can be. And now we come to the best tier. So these are the picks where generally you want to get the ticket for someone up here, but of course it's definitely worth going for people in the top and perhaps even the mid tier, depending on how much you really want and like those operators. We start with Silver Ash, everybody's first sweeper. With his wide attack range, hitting lots of enemies at once for a lot of damage. Add to that his ability to hit stealth enemies, makes him counter some of the most dangerous mechanics in some stages. Also, once you get his masteries, which I highly recommend, if you do get Silver Ash, get him to maximum mastery on that skill 3 as soon as possible. Only takes a few seconds for him to charge up and start swinging, so you can have him ready to go on demand. Silver Ash is an excellent unit to have, quite often used in guides and a very commonly borrowed unit. That said, he is from the starter banner, so it's quite likely that most people will already have him. Then we've got Aya. If you want a caster version of Silver Ash, the closest you're going to get is Aya. Silver Ash attacks in a triangle formation over a very wide area. Aya instead attacks in all directions for very rapid arts damage. Another advantage of Aya is that you can use her skill 2 instead, which turns her into a bit of an AoE caster in a small area. Aya is so good as a single target caster that she overshadows all the AoE casters even when it comes to the AoE damage. Then we got Mudrock. Mudrock is excellent. Absolute beast of attack. What makes Mudrock particularly stand out is her shield mechanic. She can gain up to 3 layers of shield. It recharges passively every few seconds. When a shield breaks, she restores 20% of her HP. The shield allows her to absorb any hit. That means big instant kill mechanics, she'll just take the hit. She can take the big hits from a boss long enough for the rest of your team to kill that boss. If she's going up against enemies that aren't strong enough to out damage the healing from her shields, she is immortal. She can hold lane like no tomorrow. Those charging lancers that do 1,000,000 damage when they impact on you, the shield just absorbs it. And then even when the shield goes down, she's very tanky. She also does way too much damage for a tank in an area. You have the option of consistent sustained damage with skill 2, or you can go for some bigger burst damage with skill 3. Both great options. Mudrock is an excellent unit. She may be an enmity unit, meaning she can't be healed by allies, but her self-sustain is so strong that she does not suffer as much as other enmity units from the lack of support healing. Of course, remember, passive healing does still work like Perfumer. Then we come to Bagpipe. That's what I said before when I was talking about Saga. If you're going to pick a Vanguard, Bagpipe should be your pick. Bagpipe is a DP on kill Vanguard. That is, she gains deployment points every time she kills an enemy. Her module, which is one of the best modules in the game, doubles that DP on kill and boosts her attack. What makes Bagpipe particularly stand out is that she's got a passive, which makes it so that all Vanguards, when deployed, start with a certain amount of skill points, which means, say you deploy the Myrtle activates her skill sooner, which means you get your team out sooner, a second activation happens sooner as well. It really just snowballs the deployment of your team. Best part about it is you don't even need to put Bagpipe out on the field first. She just has to be in your team. You could just have her in the team, not deploy her at all, and she's already really powerful just from that single passive. But then, if you actually do make use of her, you can use her skill 2 to hold lane against a stream of weaker enemies, or you can use skill 3 against stronger enemies. With skill 3 in particular, Bagpipe deals so much damage, you cannot believe she's a Vanguard. She does way too much damage for a Vanguard. It's absolutely ridiculous how hard she hits for a Vanguard. Then we come to Thorns, the master of versatility. Thorns has the ability to hit both ground and air units with the attack range of an anti-air sniper, while dealing both physical and arts damage, and if he's not attacking, he's regenerating. Thorns can basically do everything. The only thing is, there are certain enemies where maybe you need a bigger burst of damage, and then Thorns is not enough, or enemies hit a little bit too hard, and then he can't hold quite like Mountain. There are particular areas where you'll get operators that can do that specific thing better, but when it comes to the sheer breadth of options and use cases for Thorns, he's unmatched. There is so much he can do. An incredibly versatile unit, good for both new and veteran accounts, a very strong operator. And lastly, we come to Surtur, the immortal sweeper. Where Aya and Silver Ash are focused in a wide area, Surtur deals more damage, but in a more focused area, in a short line in front of her. What makes Surtur stand out in particular compared to other sweepers is her immortality mechanic. When Surtur would die, she stays on the field for several seconds longer, continuing to deal damage. That, in many cases, allows her to kill bosses where other sweepers can't, because the boss kills your other sweepers, while Surtur stays alive long enough to finish off the boss. Surtur is an excellent pick, absolutely top tier. I also do briefly want to mention the standard operators that you cannot get from this ticket, because I do get questions about this. So you cannot get Calcit, Carnelian, Mizuki, Pallas, Selig, and Fartooth. Most likely the next 6-star selector ticket will have up to Mizuki, maybe even up to Pallas. Sadly, you can't get these right now. Availability of an operator is also hugely important if you wish to extract the best value from your purchase. Let me elaborate. So, there are a lot of banners appearing over the next 6 months, and this doesn't even include the standard banners every 2 weeks. Relevant to this video specifically are the joint operations shortly after Neolight, the Mountain solo rerun after that, then in the mid-year we'll have the Celebration banner, and the Passenger solo rerun in just under 6 months from now. The joint operations banner has the 4 pictured focus units, 25% chance of each on a 6-star pull of Saga, Schwartz, Phantom, and Surtur. You cannot get any other 6-star from this banner, only these 4. Mountain and Passenger solo banners have a boosted 50% rate on a 6-star pull, and the Celebration banner gives you an operator that you don't own on your first 6-star pull. Guaranteed to be someone you don't have, unless of course you have everyone already. It's more or less the banner version of the 6-star selector ticket, but with a bit of randomness to it, depending on what you're missing in your roster. For full details on all of these banners, check the description for a video going into detail on the next 6 months of banners and which units are best. It's a great companion video to this one. Before we go any further, here is a look at the upcoming gold certificate store schedule. The left side, these are guaranteed and are on a set schedule. We know when they will release. On the right side though, it's a lot more speculative. So these are the returning operators to the gold certificate store. We can't be certain exactly when they're going to appear. It's based on how long it's been since their previous appearance, plus the number of appearances. Again, check the description for the 6 months of banners video for full detail. Of course, this video releases with Suzerain currently in store. A recommended purchase if you can afford it, by the way. Okay, now we're going to take into account the availability of an operator, because it's not just about picking the strongest units. Because you may be able to get multiple of the top tier units if you make an informed decision based on other means of obtaining those other top tier picks that you want. So we'll start with the common area. The common area is either got the guaranteed gold certificate debuts highlighted in gold over here, or units that are very likely to appear within the next few months on the gold certificate store. Then in the uncommon area, these are the ones that will debut or appear in gold a few months after that. So this is a bit more long term. This is a bit more for the more patient players. The one exception here is Mountain. He's in this uncommon area because he has a solo banner after Near Light. Now banners aren't as reliable as outright buying a unit with gold certificates. Those solo banners are generally safe if you have the pulls. That said, because there's no guarantee, I am putting him in this uncommon area. The rare area has either no good banners beyond standard banners, and they won't be in the gold certificate store for a while. Suzu, who is currently in the store, but by the time this ticket comes out, she will no longer be there. Exia and Saria would have been in the store recently, for example. The one possible exception to this rare area is Saga, who is on that joint ops banner, but it's still only a 25% chance of getting her specifically. So if you do want her, it is a good idea to at least hold on to your ticket, do some pulls, maybe 1 or 2 6 stars, see what you get. If you get Saga, great, pick someone else. If not, then you can choose her with your ticket. But if you're trying to go for Saga specifically, that 25% chance, that's no better than a standard banner. In short, I would not buy anyone from the right side common area. Of course, if you want several from the common area, you won't have enough gold certificates to acquire everyone. So you may still want to use your selector ticket on one of them. Say for instance, you want to buy Phantom, Thorns, and Weedy, and that's already stretching it a bit in terms of the number of gold certificates you will make in that time. But let's suppose you've already got some ready to go for Phantom, and then you feel you'll get enough for Weedy and Thorns after that, but you also want, say, Ifrit and Nightingale, then you may want to use your ticket on one of those, even though it's a common pick. In those cases, it can be worth going for it. Do factor in which banners you're going to be pulling on between now and the appearance of these operators in the gold store, because obviously the more banners you pull on, the more gold certificates you'll have, especially if you're putting a lot of pulls into a limited banner. Limited banners give more gold certificates than any other banner because of the one focus 5-star, and if you keep getting duplicates of them, that's a lot of gold certificates. For the uncommon area, it is definitely worth using your ticket, unless you're willing to play a bit more of a longer game and you're willing to be a bit more patient. Then you can get better value out of the ticket by going for someone in the rare area and then getting your uncommon choice by other means. For instance, Serta, she goes gold in 6 months. She's available right now in China in the gold store. It's quite a long way off, but if you really want to make the most out of your ticket, get the most value for it, you can always do that. We now come to the rare area, which is my main area of recommendation of who to pick. Now, Bagpipe is more for veteran players, because for most circumstances, you don't need her passive of giving all your vanguards the bonus skill points. Balancing power and availability, Mudrock is the best pick from this ticket. Mudrock would have been my pick, in fact, had I not just pulled her on the Fartooth banner. Great surprise to get her suddenly just before the 6-star selector ticket was going to be available and I was going to buy her. Fartooth.
What? No way! No way! It's happened again! It's happened again! No way!
The rare top picks are absolutely worth it as well, and there's no easy way of getting them in the near future. As for the mid-top range, it is worth it if you want someone for a particular role, such as Blemishine for the sleep team or for boosting your defenders, or Passenger for integrated strategies. The main area where I would avoid is the common area, especially when you're going down in the tiers, because there are other ways of acquiring them. Except if you want lots of units from that common area, then by all means use the ticket. My absolute recommendation, just don't go for anyone in the low tier. I don't think it's worth it whatsoever. You may end up getting them as an off-banner pull at some point, and if you just wanted one copy of them, that off-banner pull duplicate will feel even worse. I really don't recommend them. Okay, so we've gone over the power, we've gone over the availability. Here's one last bit to help you make your decision. I've got a bit of a priority checklist to consider. The general guidelines for which units to go for first is you go for offense units, then support units that boost offense, then defense, and then support units that boost defense. Of course, you do want to diversify a little bit, so don't just get every offense unit in the game first, then every offense support unit, etc., etc. Do diversify, but if you are torn between 3 picks, go for the offense unit first, most likely. Without seeing your roster, I can't know for certain what will be the best pick, but generally, if you feel like you need offense, go for that first. If undecided between great picks, fill gaps in your roster first. So what do I mean by that? So for instance, with lane holders, say you've already got someone like Silver Ash. So you've already got one sweeper, but you've got no lane holders. Now, yes, you could go for Selector, right, who is stronger than Silver Ash, but it's a much better option to go for a lane holder instead. That way you're filling out more roles and you can counter a greater variety of enemies, a greater variety of circumstances. That said, don't overstock on particular roles. With lane holders, for instance, if you already have, say, Mountain and Blaze, then maybe Thorns and Mudrock might not be the top priority. You might want to go for a sweeper instead, or go for someone with a bit more utility. Maybe you go for Suzu with that damage amplification and that slow utility. Every lane holder has their own strengths. So Mudrock has near immortality with the ability to take instant kill hits with the shield. Blaze has that ability to cover multiple lanes, to ignore many enemy mechanics. Mountain just refuses to die. He's got anti-rush strategy. Unectes, while definitely the weakest amongst these lane holders, she is very good in one-on-one fights against tough enemies. And then you got Thorns, who's the most versatile amongst them. He can do so many things at once. So yes, they're all very good, and at some point, at very least, Mudrock, Blaze, Mountain, and Thorns, you want to get them all into your roster eventually. But when you're making decisions early on about who to go for first, don't overstack too much in one area. If you've already got Blaze and Mountain, and your choice is between, say, Thorns and Aya, picking Aya will do a lot more for you immediately. Eventually, you are going to get both. Preferably, you're going to get everyone eventually. Do prioritize those gaps first, and don't overstack in areas. Also, there is another upcoming lane holder, Lee. He's an anti-swarm lane holder. Will be on Ling's banner 3 months after Near Light. So that's another one to keep in mind. Again, he also has different strengths and does bring something different to the lane holding pool. Similar to the lane holders, don't overstock on sweepers. If you've already got 1-2 sweepers, don't go for a third right away. Pick something else first. If you've already got Aya and Silver Ash, Selector is not a priority. You can always just borrow her when needed. If you're one of those lucky players who already has Summer Chen, then she's already covering a lot of that sweeping that you need. Yes, eventually you do want to have every sweeper. That way you can choose the right one for the right circumstance. But you don't need all of them right away. Even having only one and then borrowing the other ones that you need will do for quite a while. Arknights has many anti-air snipers, so if you've already got several good ones like Blue Poison and Platinum already built, then getting a 6-star anti-air sniper might not be the most important thing to you, because anti-air is anti-air. And yes, the 6-star ones are definitely better than the 5 stars. It's certainly an upgrade, especially with Exia. But once again, if you're making a decision between, say, 3 operators, you're looking at Mudrock, Exia, Aya, and you've already got some good anti-air snipers in the 5 and 4 stars, then pick someone else. You can always come back and get them later, or get them through a banner, get them through another circumstance. Then we've obviously got the niche picks. If you think you're really going to love integrated strategies, then Passenger is an absolute top tier pick for you. He's really fun to use, he's very powerful. I love him as a unit. I personally think he's a great option. If you are looking for that high-end content where you need to counteract a lot of arts damage, the Nightingale is a fantastic pick. You want a really strong pusher, you go for Weedy. You love defenders, you want to boost all those defenders, you've already got Mudrock, she's your favorite unit, you want to make her even stronger, you go for that Blame Shine. There's plenty of more niche picks that you can go for. And sometimes you may even want to go for someone niche over a stronger lane holder. So if you've already got 3 lane holders, you've got 3 sweepers, and so you're thinking, well, I could get another lane holder, I could get another sweeper, but it's kind of just giving me more of the same. Go for someone in a lower tier that fills a particular niche. You'll probably get more use out of them than another unit that is similar to what you've already got. It's perfectly okay to go for that. Of course, you're free to pick whatever you want. I'm just giving you some advice on the best units to pick. A quick note on recruitment. I've mentioned this briefly before. Recruitment is so unreliable that I wouldn't really factor it in to your decision on who to pick. Yes, if you're thinking in the very long term, you might think, okay, I'll probably get either Exia, Saria, or Silver Ash in the next 6 months through recruitment. But even then, that's still a bit of a gamble. I've had some of my viewers report they haven't seen the top operator tag in a year. Some of them have been playing for quite a while and have never seen it. Yes, sometimes you get really lucky. You get 5 tags in 3 weeks, like I did on my alt account, but then I didn't see one for another 6 months. Not only do you need to get the top operator tag in the first place, it then needs to have the right tags alongside it to get the operator that you want. And with some operators, no matter the combination of tags, there is no guarantee of getting them specifically. So for instance, if you really want Blaze, and you do happen to get the top operator tag plus the other 2 tags that give you the best chance of her, you're still sharing it with other operators. It's a bit too unreliable to take it into consideration. And lastly, I don't recommend buying this if you just want to get potentials. I don't think it's worth the price. That said, if it's fine, you got the money to spare, it's your money, you're free to do with it whatever you want, and you do want to get potentials, here's my recommendation. Bagpipe, number 1. By far, Bagpipe at potential 5 is the most important potential in the game. If not Bagpipe, then I recommend Phantom. So Vanguards benefit the most, then fast redeploys. If neither of those 2, then just go for your most used power picks. So your most used sweepers or your most used lane holders. It just helps to make them a little bit stronger. When considering potentials, you specifically want to be looking at the potential that boosts a talent, the passives of a unit. And so we near the end. You should now have all the knowledge needed to make the right decision on which operators to pick for Neolight's 6-star selector ticket. Do feel free to comment below if you need further advice. I will do my best to respond, and members of the community will do so as well. When Neolight releases, I'll be creating a brand new account to beat the entire event before it finishes, all live on Twitch at twitch.tv/DrVolk. Do come and join me. I stream several times a week outside of that. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new here, and hit that bell so you don't miss anything, including upcoming videos on all events and all skins. We also have a Discord server where you can ask for help or add friends, links below. Thank you kindly for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.